Welcome to the Future in 15 show. I'm host Caleb Parker. If you're tuning in for the first time, the Future in 15 show is 15-minute interviews with entrepreneurs and business leaders who are innovating within their company and creating the future of their industry. Welcome to the Future in 15 show. I'm Caleb Parker, and we're in London, England today at London & Partners. It's a beautiful venue. You can't see behind you on the screen, but everybody here can see the beautiful view overlooking the Thames. We're here with Deborah Kelly, who's the head of sales for London & Partners. London & Partners is the mayor's official promotional office for London. So Deborah, could you please give us just a quick overview of what you guys do?
Sure. So we're the Mayor of London's official promotional agency. We incorporate foreign direct investment, help overseas students come and study in higher education institutions in London, run visitlondon.com, which is the official visitor guide for the city, and the team that I work in is Business Tourism and Convention Bureau. So we provide a completely free, impartial event solution service and help clients unlock London for events.
Well, before we start talking about the future and how you guys are innovating, let's talk about the present. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've supported agencies and event organizers to date?
Absolutely. So we're very focused on corporate events and association congress events. So currently we're really proud of the fact that we're number 5 in the ICA rankings. Since London & Partners was created, we've moved from number 19 to number 5 in those rankings with some of the strategy that I think we'll talk about a little later on. But for agencies, it's really about working with them to unlock London. So helping them pitch for contestable event projects. So when an organiser is considering London and another international destination, that's where we have the most influence and a best place to support. So there's a range of services that our team provide. It's really about knowing the city, knowing our partners, helping facilitate introductions, and helping curate content for the city.
Last week you were at IMEX in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
And Greg Oates, editor for Skift, he made a point to talk about how, I'm just going to quote him for a moment. It says, the focus is on inclusive innovation and the city's becoming the venue. Mm-hmm. Now I understand London & Partners has been innovating to position London as the future destination for citywide events. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. So we want to position London as a playground for event organisers.
I like that.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. You've got some of the best venues in the world, some of the most iconic attractions. After hours for delegates, you can open up some of the most exciting spaces in the world. You can also allow your delegates to access those venues as tourist attractions free of charge. We were talking about culture with Greg last week. Mm-hmm. So 3 of the top 5 museums in the world are in London. Whether you use that as a backdrop for your event or an add-on for delegates to do at the weekend, that's what we're trying to do. So trying to get organisers to understand how to make the most of London, challenge them to try things outside of the box, and we'll be there to support them through the process.
And are you talking about as the other aspects of London being there for the event, or are you saying piggybacking, so when people come in for an event, they have things to do a few days after or a few days before?
So one of the things that London's really good at doing and that we've been very successful in doing is, okay, you come here, stay 3 days for your event. it's actually about that add-on experience. So whether you bring your partner, bring your family with you, bring an extra colleague with you, stay for a few more days, it's about extending the life of the business visitor. So some people call it bleisure.
Yes, I like that word. Hashtag bleisure or bleisure if you're an American.
So some people call it that. We call it an opportunity for London. So then we're about how can we help dispersal? How can we help the outer London boroughs benefit from that? So get people to explore more of the city, have a great time. They go away and they go and tell all their colleagues, their family and friends. And what we see is 40% of people that came to London as an event attendee actually come back and visit as a leisure visitor. So economically that's good, but it also means that London's really strong as a destination because people are having a great time and want to come back and experience it more and more.
All right, I want to talk about technology for a minute. We were talking earlier how you use technology to curate experiences for events. So talk about that a little bit.
So one of the things, big projects that we did at London and Partners, so we have our key sectors and technology has always been one of those. So it was about how can we use a key sector, so tech, and how can we curate content for the city using technology. So we brought in a portfolio of 8 tech exhibitions run by Informa. So they take place at Excel London during London Tech Week, and bring thousands of visitors to the city for a B2B event. And then what we decided to do was programme a festival and celebration of London's expertise in the tech sector around that. So we created a crowdsourced week of activity. So it's London Tech Week. Anyone who wants to celebrate tech in London, celebrate their tech business, can essentially put their hand up, host an event during the week, get involved. It's about facilitating networking opportunities for visitors and businesses. And then we started to program in some real fun activity and kind of consumer activity. So the drone racing league, we had there...
Drone racing?
Drone racing.
Explain that.
So literally racing drones by professional drone
So
drivers.
not anyone could sign up and race a drone?
No.
Okay.
No, sadly not.
Okay. Probably thankfully not.
The health and safety around it is quite intense. But we used the incredible backdrop of Alexandra Palace, which is a fantastic showcase for London. And this programme, the championship final, was screened on Sky Sports Live. And then an amazing event for people to go and experience as well.
So the viewers watching the television on Sky Sports Live, they're seeing London showcased.
Yeah.
So it's a great PR
Absolutely.
win for you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's what it's about. It's about who would think about drones in an iconic venue like Alexandra Palace. They don't necessarily go together, but when those two things collide, you get an amazing race that showcases this incredible city that we're working in.
So going back though, I find it interesting. So London and Partners tapped into the existing tech community to curate events.
Yeah.
And do you see other destinations doing that? Are they tapping into their tech community to
I mean, this was curation on a large scale. So just to give you an idea, London Tech Week this year was 300 events.
300 events?
300 events, 48,000 visitors. So that's quite a significant programming of events. We have other similar events
And so
in different sectors.
when you say curating, you're getting other people to put the events on. Are you programming those events yourself, or is that anybody can say, I'm going to have an event?
We program a selection of the content.
Okay.
We come up with 6 different key themes for the week. So diversity, for example. So, how can you get women leaders from the technology sector more involved and discussing their those kind of options and tech and their experience of tech with the next generation that are coming through. It was about curating content, so we would give a steer on things, and then we had our own portfolio of events as well, but people are very much welcome to put their hand up. You know, if it's beers and pizza over a hackathon, then that's cool as well.
Awesome. So how did you use technology to actually, so you tapped into the tech community, but did you use technology to curate these events? How did you manage to bring all these events into one?
So we have LondonTechWeek.com, which is the website for the week. That's interactive, so people can go on that and build their own schedule of events that they would like to attend. And then there's an app as well, so people are actually saying, hey, I'm at So Far Sounds, or I'm here having a beer, or planning to be here for a coffee, and I'm interested in X, Y, and Z. And then there's mutual people that they can network with and have drinks over, chat about their learnings from the week.
Okay, very good. Well, that's a good segue. I love these segues. You're good at that. Speaking of apps, so every time I turn around, there's a new company selling an event app. I'm sure you have some interesting views on that yourself. But what I'm curious is your view on how can these event app companies, or how can an organizer use an app to not just engage delegates or attendees at an event within a venue, but also bring in the destination experiences into that.
I think event apps are amazing when they're done really well, and I think as an industry there's a responsibility sometimes to step back and say, actually, you as an event organizer don't need an app, because the venue has an incredible app and the destination has an incredible app. And I think we need to be a bit more responsible as a community rather than just an app for app's sake. I've been at lots of trade shows this year, you know, exhibitions for our industry, and there's an app for everything. And when they're not working, that's not a good look for our industry. So I think working together, and like the playground concept we were talking about earlier, I think we'd like to see more people make use of apps that are there and exist already. We have an app, but we know we're not a city mapper or a national rail, so we pull on those existing content, and I think there's a role to
So do you think then that maybe some of these event apps at a big citywide event that's being used could integrate maybe with London and Partners app?
Yeah.
And share content back and forth?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So they can draw down on Visit London, the Visit London app, and navigate around the city.
Okay, so continuing the tech talk, earlier we were talking about digital welcomes. That's interesting to me. So can you talk about what is a digital welcome? How does it benefit? Why should we consider it? Why should that happen?
So digital welcome, or it's kind of taking city dressing, city branding to the next level. Also being commercially smart about it as well, you know, banners, old style print collateral dates really easily.
So you're talking about welcoming groups to the city? Welcoming
groups of B2B event goers to the city. And yeah, I think in a city like London, we were talking earlier, where you've got 5 international airports, you could have people coming for one event that have chosen any route to get there, you know, plane, train, walking, on the tube. So it's very complex because you have this plethora of so much choice. It can actually make it quite confusing in branding and getting the correct information to event attendees. So that's one of the things that we're trying to simplify. And I think the best way of doing that is using tech and using city branding. So we have opportunities on some of the events that we work on where we'll work and make London a micro destination. So if you think wherever the event is and try and program activity around that area, and then we're able to work with venue partners on a branding opportunity there. But then that's where we've been using the Visit London app as well, is helping navigate people through and get messaging through to them.
It's interesting. How would you work with an organizer on that? Could an organizer come to you and say, we have 30,000 people coming in for this particular association's Congress.
Mm-hmm.
Can you help coordinate digital signage?
So we have a good example of that. In September 2015, it's a project that we had in our pipeline for 7 years. So just so you can get the scale of how long we're working on these events for.
The tech evolved a lot in that time frame, for sure. Yeah.
So this was the European Society of Cardiologists, who bring 33,000 heart specialists to the city. They selected London. They challenged us and asked us to come up with a city welcome that also had a legacy piece. So it was about raising the awareness of the event and good growth for the city. So we tried to come up with, and successfully did, come up with a heart trail that shone the spotlight on the South Bank. Worked with venue partners, worked with one of our event agency partners and Wild Goose, who came up with an interactive trail. So it was an education piece on raising the awareness of heart disease in London, supporting the British Heart Foundation, educating people who had perhaps never been to London before about the city. And then there were various points that they could take in along the trail and experience the city. And I think that was a nice welcome and legacy piece.